1 versus 2, Ohio State and Indiana. Think about this. If I told you 5 years ago Indiana was going to be the second-ranked team in college football and playing Ohio State for a Big Ten title game, and there wouldn't be any divisions in the Big Ten, you would have looked at me sideways, and deservedly so. But in this spot now, I think Indiana, the thing that's being missed with them, they present the most difficult challenge for Ohio State's defense that Ohio State has seen the entirety of this season. Now, I want to go back and highlight something that your boys said during the offseason when Ohio State hired Matt Patricia, and I have gradually, semi-gradually, backed off this take that Matt Patricia was not a good hire for Ohio State. Hand up, that's on me. I'm wrong on that. I will back off that fully that he was a bad hire. That has very obviously not been the case for the Buckeyes. They've got the best defense in college football. I was wrong about Matt Patricia not being a good hire for Ohio State. But within the context of that, one thing that I did say that I'm not all the way ready to back off just yet is that Ohio State and their goals are all about the 10% difference of winning a national championship and being out in the first round of the college football playoff. That is a 10% difference in my mind. And Ohio State's defense last year made that 10% difference. In this spot now, this will be the first true test for Matt Patricia's defense at Ohio State of how far along they are in that 10%. Because if you lose this game, you're still getting a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. It would suck. It'd feel sour. It'd make the Michigan win feel not as cool probably for you in some respects. But it's like Ohio State still has every single opportunity to still win a national championship. But if you show up against Indiana and those receivers, the best you've seen all year, give you some problems. If Indiana gets to run the football a little bit, the way that Michigan started out running the football, Jordan Marshall, 35-yard gain to start the game. We're all like, holy, is this about to happen again? Was that defense all fugazi the entirety of the year? Wasn't the case. But Indiana, they've got multiple ways to attack you. And Indiana, too, what's not being talked about with them, they are a run-first football team. Indiana's averaging 5.5 yards a carry, over 220 yards a game. Now, I understand the percentages there are skewed a little bit because Indiana's beating the brakes off most people and just running the clock out in the fourth quarter. So 55% run, 60% run is maybe a little bit skewed. But I think the point stands the same. Indiana, if they can run the football, here we freaking go now. And they have the potential now, they have the personnel to get that done. Does Ohio State show they have that 10% difference ingredients in this spot, win the football game and make you feel better if you're a Buckeye fan about going back-to-back? Now, I think what's being missed for Ohio State, I think we all moved way too quickly off of what we saw in that Michigan game. Like the movie poster for Ohio State has Julian Sayin on the front, Jeremiah Smith on the front, Carnell Tate on the front. It's got probably a cool title like Aerial Assault or something like that in theaters now, streaming everywhere. But when you look at Ohio State and what's going to allow them to win a national championship, I think it'll be a lot more of what you saw against Michigan, averaging 5 yards a carry. I think what's being missed is how violent Ohio State showed up in that game against a really good front seven for Michigan. Like, I know you hate Michigan if you're Ohio State. I get it. I love the rivalry aspect of it, but you can't say they're not a good defense. You can't say they're not a tough outfit up front. They're a top 15 run-stopping unit in college football. Like, you, I think, should feel very accomplished and very proud of what you did up front. I think there's some staying power to that. So what's being missed is Ohio State is in this part of the year now where they're going to show up with, I think, a little bit more violence because of the way they save some of their snaps off their starters for the better part of the regular season. We've said it many times on this show. The first part of the year, the drive phase for Ohio State of the race. Just get out of the blocks hot, beat Texas, beat Washington, beat Illinois, then get to that middle part of the year, just kind of float. Beat the teams you got to beat your Wisconsins, beat your Purdues, beat UCLA, feel good about all that. But then when you get to Michigan, you start to kick. And when I say start to kick, you're giving everything you got down the stretch, everything you got physically on that line of scrimmage down the stretch to go win a national championship. They're very comfortable winning games without Julian Sayin going for over 300 yards. In fact, Julian Sayin hasn't thrown for over 200 yards since the Purdue game. And I still think he has every chance to win the Heisman Trophy. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show when we talk final conference predictions here, or final conference title predictions here with Caden Smith. But the point stands. The survival kit and the physicality of Ohio State, I think, is elite, and I think it's not being talked about nearly enough going into this game. The last thing I want to say about this game, if you're expecting this game to be a rerun of what you saw in Columbus last year when Kurt Cinetti and the boys rolled into the shoe, you are very sadly mistaken. Indiana now has players to make this game a game. Last year, I don't think they did. Last year, I think it was workable schedule. I think it was the Cignetti magic. I think Curtis Rourke was a great get through the transfer portal. They had good players. They didn't have players to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State, and it showed up in that game. Now, there's some things that you say, JD, if the special teams shows up in a different way, maybe it's a different game flow. I hear that, but I don't agree with that. I think this version of Indiana can legitimately make it a game with Ohio State. Now, to be clear, I picked Ohio State to win. I think Ohio State will eventually end up giving a pretty good scare to that number, depending on what it's at during game time. But all that's to say, this will be a good test for Ohio State. Don't do the thing where Ohio State wins and it's like, oh, well, Indiana's Indiana. Indiana's kind of fugazi, right? No. We know who Indiana is. Indiana's a good football. They went to Austin and beat Oregon by 10 points. Indiana's legit, man. Do not get it twisted. This is not last year's Indiana. So for both teams, we got a good filter on what they'll be here. Because if Indiana's wins and we're wrong, I mean, no question about who Ohio State is either. So that's what's being missed in the Big Ten title game. And, gosh, it's going to be a cinematic conference title weekend. I cannot wait for it. I know you can't either.